Alright, what's going on people, Ring Roadmap here, and today we're going to be talking about some weapons that you need for the bladed stance if you want to survive with the bladed stance. Now, I always said in the past that I think the bladed stance is a weak position, especially if your opponent's a volume puncher. You have to go back to your high guard, in order to protect those, or in order to defend yourself from those punches. But in my opinion, if you want to rock the bladed stance, all you need is a couple of weapons, and you're going to be able to thrive in that particular position, and you're going to be able to defend yourself in that position as well. So let's get right into it. The first one you need, in my opinion, is definitely a good step back, alright? You need a good step back. You cannot just lean back like this. You cannot just use your upper body movement. After a while, that shit gets predictable. If you look at, for example, Roy Jones versus James Toney, it's the same thing that he did, because he's so used to like leaning back and not moving his feet. He got timed by Roy Jones with that left hook. They both showboated like this, and then Roy Jones timed him with like a leaping left hook, based on what I can remember. And because he doesn't really know how to step back, he got caught on the back foot, he got caught off balance, and then he got knocked down. So that's one thing that you need to, or that's the first move that you need to have. That's the first weapon that you need to have. You cannot just lean back like this, okay? You cannot just use your upper body movement like this. After a while, your opponent, who has a good punching variety, who's good in combination punching, I should say, they're going to be able to figure that shit out, okay? So don't do that. You need a good step back game. You need to learn how to move your feet. If you want to use the bladed stance, you need to be able to learn how to use lateral movement, backward movement, and also you need to be able to counter from those particular moves. You also need to learn how to counter from the step back. You need to learn how to counter while moving side to side, and so that's the first thing. Second thing you need is going to be the right hand variety. Okay, you need good right hand variety. Good right hand counters, I should say. So you need variety in your right hand counters, and I have three in particular that I want you to work on. The first one is going to be the short right hand, okay, or the short rear punch, which is mostly used by guys like Shakur Stevenson. You look at him, he steps back like this, bam, he catches you right there with that short right hand. Kaiguchi also kind of uses this move, although he doesn't do it off of the step back. He also uses this usually on the inside, and what that does is that when your opponent comes in, they're going to be pushed to the back foot like this, because the trajectory of that punch is going sideward. So naturally, if you step back and then you counter here, that's going to push them on the back foot. That's going to get them to a bladed position, which is, again, a weak position. Alright, so you're both bladed now, but they're more off balance and they're more vulnerable to your punches. Secondly, you need the rear uppercut counter. Okay, so short right hand, and then you need the rear uppercut counter from the bladed stance. You need to learn how to throw it short and how to throw it long to the body and to the head as well. So, that's the second thing that you need. Rear uppercut from the bladed stance. And you need to be able to do it while also keeping your defense, while still blocking these punches, right? And you need to combine it with hooks as well at times. And then finally, you need a good chopping right. If you want to rock the bladed stance, this is going to be the shot that to me is the most powerful in terms of those, or out of all those three, it's the most powerful. The chopping right is basically a longer shot. It's not a short right hand, but it's basically the same trajectory. You throw it with your elbows up, and then you throw it downwards like that. So it's gonna look like this, okay? And usually you can throw this, on the inside. You just have to find the angle for it. Usually you'll have to step off to the side so that you can follow through more with it. So it's gonna look like this, right? Or you can throw it from mid-range, right here. Just take a tiny step back and throw it downwards, okay? Chop it right. And usually that will land on the side of their face. And then the third one is going to be the check hook. You need a good check hook if you want to learn or if you want to survive in the bladed stance, because what happens is, if you overly rely on your rear punch, that's just going to be predictable, and all they have to do now is to expect your rear punch and to pin your lead hand. Okay, so you guys can see this in my Visalis versus Mori video, where Mori was able to pin the lead hand of Visalis, and so Visalis was only able to counter with his rear hand. And after a while, that shit becomes predictable. So what you need to do is you need to have a punch, or you need to learn how to throw the check hook from the bladed position, which is much harder. It's not going to produce as much power, but it's important nonetheless. You need to be able to get used to throwing it from the back foot and throwing it from a bladed position. So that's the third one. Lastly, in my opinion, if you want to learn how to, or if you want to survive in a bladed stance, you need to learn how to tie up. You know, we can see this in the recent fight between Benavidez versus Caleb Plant, where Caleb Plant will throw a jab and then he'll tie up right away. Okay? Caleb Plant will throw a right hand, he'll tie up right away. And this is important because, for the most part, if you're bladed, you're really limited in terms of the combos that you throw. Usually you throw 1, 2, 3, and you're gonna have to square up in order to follow up. Alright, so if you look at Caleb Plant, he goes 1, 2, 3, he squares up, and then he throws his left hook to the body. If you stay bladed, you're gonna be much more limited. You're gonna go 1, 1, 2, and then you're gonna go back. 1, 1, 2, 3, you're gonna go back. You're not as squared, so it's gonna be much harder to find openings around your opponent. Okay, so when you're bladed, what you need to do is, instead of just staying bladed, you can tie up. You can initiate a smother, which is what you saw with Caleb Plant, and it's one of the reasons why he was able to survive for 12 rounds against David Benavidez. So that was it for this video, pretty short one. 4 weapons that you need if you want to survive in the bladed stance, and if you want to master the bladed stance as well. Subscribe if you're new, and peace out.